The sun was hot in the sky as people walked up and down the busy London street. Cars moved slowly in the heavy traffic. Horns honked. Street sellers called out to sell their food and drinks. It was just another normal day in the big city. Outside a small coffee shop with bright blue doors sat three dogs. There was a tiny Yorkshire Terrier with light brown fur, a chunky French Bulldog with a black face, and a small Beagle mix with floppy ears. All three dogs were tied to a bike rack with their leashes. They sat quietly, waiting for their owner, who was inside the shop. The dogs were well behaved. The Yorkshire Terrier, named Pip, watched the people walk by with curious eyes. The French Bulldog, Bruno, had fallen asleep in the patch of shade under the bike rack. The Beagle mix, Scout, sniffed the air, hoping to catch the smell of food. At the corner of the street stood three men in dirty jeans and black leather vests. They had just left a bar down the road. The tallest one, a man named Vic, had drunk too many beers. His eyes were red, and he couldn't walk straight. His friends, Mac and Dale, laughed as Vic almost fell over his own feet. "Hey, look at those tiny dogs," Vic said loudly, pointing at the three dogs by the coffee shop. "They look so stupid just sitting there." Mac laughed. "Yeah, who would own such small dogs? They're like toys, not real dogs." Vic smiled in a mean way. His eyes narrowed as he got an idea. "Watch this," he said to his friends. "I'm going to have some fun." Inside the coffee shop, a man stood at the counter waiting for his order. He wore a black cap pulled low over his eyes and dark sunglasses. He had on a simple black t-shirt that showed his strong arms and a pair of jeans. No one in the shop paid him much attention, which was just how he liked it. "Black coffee, no sugar," the barista called out, sliding a cup across the counter. The man nodded his thanks and reached for the cup. Just then, he heard a yelp from outside. His head turned quickly toward the sound. Back outside, Vic had walked up to the three dogs. People walked by, most not paying attention. Vic looked around, making sure his friends were watching. Then he gently kicked at the Yorkshire Terrier, Pip. The small dog yelped in surprise and fear. "Hey, did you see that?" a woman walking by said. "That man just kicked that poor dog." Vic ignored her. His friends laughed from the corner. "Do it again," Dale called out. Bruno, the French Bulldog, woke up and started barking. Scout, the Beagle mix, pulled on his leash, trying to protect his smaller friend. Vic laughed at the dogs trying to defend themselves. He raised his foot again, ready to kick at the dogs once more. "These rich people and their fancy dogs," Vic said loudly. "Someone needs to teach them a lesson." Inside the coffee shop, the man in the black cap put his coffee down without taking the sip. He walked quickly to the door, his movements smooth and powerful like a tiger. His face was calm, but his eyes behind the sunglasses were not. Just as Vic was about to kick the dogs again, the shop door opened. The man in the black cap stepped outside. He took off his sunglasses slowly. His intense eyes focused on Vic and the scene before him. No one on the street recognized the man yet. No one knew that the three small dogs belonged to one of the most famous action movie stars in the world. No one knew that Vic had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The man took off his cap, revealing his face in the bright sunlight. A few people nearby gasped as they recognized him. It was Jason Statham, and those were his dogs. Jason Statham walked toward Vic with slow, steady steps. People on the street began to stop and stare. Some pulled out their phones to record what was happening. No one could believe their eyes. The famous movie star was right there on their normal street. "Those are my dogs," Jason said in his deep, rough voice. He did not yell. He did not need to. His voice was calm but strong, like thunder far away. Vic's smile dropped from his face. His eyes grew wide as he recognized who was standing in front of him. The beer in his body made his brain slow, but he was not so drunk that he couldn't see he was in big trouble. I didn't know," Vic said, his voice now small and shaky. He took a step back. "It was just a joke, man. Just having some fun." Jason's face did not change. He did not smile. He did not frown. He just looked at Vic with his deep, serious eyes. "You think hurting small animals is fun?" he asked. By now, Vic's friends had started to move away. They did not want to be part of what was happening anymore. Mac pretended to look at his phone. Dale suddenly found the sky very interesting. "Your friends are leaving," Jason said, not taking his eyes off Vic. "Not such a funny joke now, is it?" Pip, the Yorkshire Terrier who had been kicked, was still shaking. Jason knelt down, his back straight and strong, and gently checked his small dog. Bruno and Scout pushed forward, trying to lick Jason's hands. A crowd had formed around them now. People whispered to each other. Some pointed. Many had their phones out, recording everything. "Is the dog okay?" a woman in the crowd asked. Jason ran his hands carefully over Pip's small body. The dog wiggled but did not seem to be hurt badly. "He's scared, but I think he'll be fine," Jason answered, his voice softer when talking about his pet. He stood up again, his full height making Vic look even smaller. Vic was no longer smiling or laughing. His face was white, and sweat ran down his forehead. "I'm sorry, man. Really sorry," Vic said quickly. "I didn't mean any harm. I just wasn't thinking." A police car pulled up slowly through the crowd. Someone had called the cops. 2 officers stepped out and pushed through the people. "Everything okay here?" the first officer asked, looking back and forth between Jason and Vic. Jason took a deep breath. The crowd waited to see what would happen next. Would the famous action hero punch the man who hurt his dogs? Would he press charges? Everyone watched, excited to see real drama on their street. "This man kicked my dog," Jason said to the police officers. "My dogs were tied up, waiting for me. They did nothing wrong." The second officer turned to Vic. "Is this true, sir?" Vic looked down at his shoes. His big, tough act from before was gone now. "Yes," he said quietly, "but it was just a joke." "Yes, you said that," Jason cut in. His voice was hard like steel. "But jokes are meant to make people laugh. No one is laughing now." The first officer took out a small notebook. "We can take him in for animal cruelty, sir, if you want to press charges." The crowd waited. Some people nodded, wanting to see Vic punished. Others just wanted to see what Jason Statham would do in real life. Was he as tough as in his movies? Would he show mercy? Jason looked at Vic for a long time. The man who had been so big and brave when kicking small dogs now looked very small himself. "I have a better idea," Jason finally said. The crowd leaned in closer to hear what would happen next. "I have a better idea," Jason said, looking straight at Vic. "Instead of going to jail, you can help animals for a change." The police officers looked at Jason with question marks on their faces. The crowd was quiet, waiting to hear more. "There's an animal shelter on Chester Street," Jason continued. "They always need help. You will work there for free, every weekend for 1 month." Vic blinked in surprise. This was not what he expected. "You want me to work with dogs?" he asked. "Yes," Jason said firmly. "You will clean cages. You will feed animals. You will walk dogs that have no home. Maybe then you will learn that animals have feelings too." The first police officer nodded slowly. "That could work, if Mr. Statham doesn't want to press charges. Community service instead of jail time." "I know the owner of the shelter," Jason added. "Her name is Mrs. Wilson. I will call her right now." He pulled out his phone and stepped away to make the call. The crowd watched as Jason spoke on the phone. Some people were taking pictures. Others were still recording videos. Vic stood there, feeling very small and foolish. "He's being too nice," one man in the crowd said. "I would have punched that guy." "That's why he's Jason Statham, and you're not," a woman answered. Jason came back after his call. "It's all set up," he said to the police officers. "Mrs. Wilson will expect him this Saturday at 8 a.m. She will report to you if he doesn't show up." The second officer wrote something in his notebook. "We'll need your full name and address," he said to Vic. Vic gave his information, his voice shaking a little. He couldn't believe what was happening. This morning he was just having drinks with friends. Now he was standing in front of Jason Statham, being told he had to work at an animal shelter. Can I say sorry to your dogs?" Vic asked suddenly. The crowd went quiet again. This was not what they expected either. Jason thought for a moment. Then he nodded. "You can, but move slowly. They're still scared." Vic got down on one knee, moving very carefully. The three small dogs watched him with careful eyes. Bruno, the French bulldog, made a low growl. "It's okay," Jason said softly to his dogs. "It's okay now." Vic reached out one hand, very slowly. "I'm sorry," he said to the dogs. "I was being stupid. I won't ever hurt an animal again." Pip, the Yorkshire Terrier who had been kicked, stayed behind Jason's leg, but Scout, the Beagle mix, came forward a little. He sniffed Vic's hand, but didn't come any closer. "That's a start," Jason said. "Animals can sense when people are honest." The police officers seemed satisfied with how things had turned out. "We'll be checking that you show up at the shelter," the first officer told Vic. "Don't miss a day." Vic nodded. "I won't. I promise." The crowd started to break up now. The excitement was over. Jason picked up Pip, the smallest dog, and held him close. With his other hand, he gathered the leashes of Bruno and Scout. "I was just getting coffee," Jason said, more to himself than anyone else. "Just a normal day." One brave young woman approached Jason. "Can I take a picture with you?" she asked. Jason shook his head. "Not today. My dogs need to go home and rest." His voice was kind but firm. The woman nodded and stepped back. As Jason started to walk away with his three dogs, people on the street made way for him. Some clapped. Others called out, "Good job," or "We love you, Jason." Vic stood alone on the sidewalk. His friends were long gone. He had a lot to think about. And the whole thing had been caught on many phones. By tonight, the story would be all over the internet. By that night, videos of what happened were everywhere online. People called Jason Statham a hero. They said he was just like the good guys he played in movies. The story was on news websites and social media. Everyone was talking about it. "Action star shows real-life heroism," one headline read. Another said, "Jason Statham stands up for dogs against bully." The videos had millions of views. At his big house in London, Jason sat on his couch with his three dogs. Pip, the Yorkshire Terrier, was curled up on his lap. Bruno, the French bulldog, and Scout, the Beagle mix, were sleeping next to him. Jason was watching the news on TV. And in our next story, actor Jason Statham showed he's a hero in real life too. The news lady said, "Today he stopped a man who was kicking his dogs outside a coffee shop." Jason sighed and turned off the TV. He just wanted a quiet life when he wasn't making movies. Now everyone would be talking about this for weeks. His phone had been ringing all day with calls from reporters. He hadn't answered any of them. "You three cause a lot of trouble," he said to his dogs with a small smile. Pip wagged his tail and licked Jason's hand. The next morning, Jason's agent called him early. "Jason, this dog story is huge. Everyone loves it. Free talk shows want you on this week." "We cooled." "No," Jason said firmly. "No talk shows. No interviews. It wasn't a big deal." "But," his agent started to say. "I said no," Jason repeated. "I just did what anyone would do. I protected my dogs." His agent sighed. "Fine, but this is good for your image, you know. People love seeing you as a real-life hero." After he hung up, Jason took his dogs for their morning walk. He put on his cap and sunglasses again. But it didn't help. People recognized him now. They pointed and whispered. Some came up to him. "Can I pet your dogs?" a little boy asked. Jason looked down at the boy. He was maybe 6 years old, with big brown eyes. Sure, Jason said, but be gentle. This one is Pip. He's a bit scared of strangers right now. The boy carefully patted Pip's head. I saw you on my mom's phone. You helped your dogs when a bad man was mean to them. That's right, Jason said. Always be kind to animals. They're our friends. The boy's mother stood nearby, looking embarrassed. I'm sorry to bother you, Mr. Statham. Tommy insisted on saying hello when he saw your dogs. Jason smiled. It's no problem. Your son is very polite. As they walked away, Jason heard the boy say, Mom, he's nicer than in his movies. Meanwhile, across town, Vic woke up with a bad headache. His phone had blown up with messages last night. Everyone he knew had seen the videos. Some friends made fun of him. Others were angry at him for hurting animals. Vic looked at his clock. It was Thursday. In 2 days, he would have to go to the animal shelter. He was not looking forward to it. He had never been around animals much. He was a little scared of big dogs. His roommate knocked on his door. Dude, you're famous, but not in a good way. Vic groaned. Don't remind me. Why did you do it, man? Kicking dogs. And then it turns out they belong to Jason Statham of all people. Vic sat up in bed. I don't know. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. He paused. I feel really bad about it now. His roommate looked surprised. You do? Yeah, Vic said. The look on that dog's face when I kicked it. I keep seeing it when I close my eyes. So what are you going to do about it? His roommate asked. Vic thought for a moment. I'm going to that shelter on Saturday. And I'm going to do a good job. I need to make this right somehow. His roommate nodded. That's a start, I guess. Vic wasn't sure if working at an animal shelter would fix anything, but he knew he had to try. Saturday morning came too quickly for Vic. He woke up at 6:30 a.m., earlier than he had in years. His stomach felt tight with worry. Today was his first day at the animal shelter. He put on clean jeans and a plain blue t-shirt, no leather vest today. No tough guy act. He wanted to make a good first impression. Good luck, his roommate called as Vic headed out the door. Try not to kick any dogs today. He laughed at his own joke. Vic didn't laugh. Not funny, man, he said quietly. The animal shelter on Chester Street was a small building with a fenced yard behind it. A sign out front read, Chester Street Animal Rescue. Vic took a deep breath and walked in. A woman in her 60s with gray hair and kind eyes looked up from behind a desk. Can I help you? She asked. I'm Vic, he said. I'm supposed to work here on weekends. Jason Statham sent me. The woman's face changed. Ah, so you're the dog kicker, she said. Her voice was not so kind now. I'm Mrs. Wilson. Jason called me about you. Vic looked down at his shoes. Yes, ma'am. But I'm really sorry about what happened. I want to make it right. Mrs. Wilson looked at him for a long time. We'll see about that, she finally said. Actions speak louder than words in my shelter. She led Vic to a back room filled with dog cages. The noise was very loud. Dogs of all sizes barked and jumped against their cage doors. First job, Mrs. Wilson said, handing Vic a mop and bucket. Clean all the cages, change their water. Don't let any dogs out of their cages yet. I don't trust you with them. Vic nodded. It was fair. He had to earn trust back. He got to work while Mrs. Wilson watched him for a few minutes before going back to the front desk. The work was hard and messy. Some cages were very dirty. The smell was bad. But Vic didn't complain. He worked steadily, talking softly to each dog as he cleaned their cage. Hey buddy, just getting this clean for you, he would say. Or, sorry about the mess, girl. We'll get you fixed up nice. At first, most dogs barked at him or backed away. But as the morning went on, some began to wag their tails when he came to their cage. By lunchtime, Vic was tired and sweaty. His back hurt from bending over. His hands were sore. But he had cleaned every cage and given fresh water to every dog. Mrs. Wilson came to check his work. She walked slowly, looking in each cage. Her face gave nothing away. "Not bad," she finally said. "You didn't skip the messy ones. That's something." Vic felt a small bit of pride. "Thanks." "Lunch break," Mrs. Wilson said. "Then we need to walk the small dogs." After a quick sandwich, Vic followed Mrs. Wilson to a room with leashes hanging on hooks. She took one and showed him how to put it on properly. "Small dogs first," she said. "They're easier to handle." She picked a little white dog that looked a bit like Pip, Jason Statham's Yorkshire Terrier. Vic felt nervous as she handed him the leash. The dog looked up at him with big brown eyes. "This is Millie," Mrs. Wilson said. "She was left behind when her family moved away. She's very gentle." Vic knelt down slowly, just like he had done with Jason's dogs. He held out his hand for Millie to sniff. The little dog came forward and licked his fingers. Something strange happened then. Vic felt a lump in his throat. His eyes got a little wet. This tiny dog, who had been abandoned by people she trusted, still wanted to be friends with him. "Hi, Millie," he said softly. "Want to go for a walk?" Mrs. Wilson watched them with careful eyes. Maybe, just maybe, this tough biker man wasn't all bad after all. The rest of Vic's first day at the shelter went by quickly. He walked 6 small dogs, each one warming up to him more than the last. By the end of the day, he was tired but felt good inside. It was a feeling he had not had in a long time. "See you tomorrow," Mrs. Wilson said as he was leaving. 8 a.m. sharp. Vic nodded. "I'll be here." That night, he looked up dog training videos online. He wanted to learn more about how to handle dogs properly. He fell asleep watching a video about how to tell if a dog is scared or happy. The next day, Vic arrived at 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes early. Mrs. Wilson raised her eyebrows when she saw him. "You're early," she said. "Thought I could get a head start on the cleaning," Vic replied. As the day went on, Mrs. Wilson let Vic try walking some of the bigger dogs. He was careful and patient, just like in the videos he had watched. When one big dog got scared by a loud car, Vic knelt down and spoke softly until the dog felt better. "You're doing well with them," Mrs. Wilson said later. "Better than I expected." Vic smiled. "Thanks. They're good dogs." "Yes, they are," Mrs. Wilson agreed. "Just need someone to give them a chance." By the end of his second weekend at the shelter, Vic had learned all the dogs' names. He knew which ones needed special food. He knew which ones didn't like loud noises, and he had started to feel something new when he worked with them, a sense of being needed. Meanwhile, Jason Statham was back at work. He was filming a new movie, and his schedule was busy. But he still thought about the incident with his dogs. He wondered if the biker man was really going to the shelter. One evening after filming, Jason called Mrs. Wilson. "How's our volunteer doing?" he asked. "Better than expected," Mrs. Wilson told him. "He's good with the dogs. Gentle. Patient. Works hard without complaining." "Really?" Jason was surprised. "I thought he might not even show up." "Oh, he shows up," Mrs. Wilson said. "Early, even. And the dogs like him. Especially Millie, our little white terrier. She follows him everywhere." Jason was quiet for a moment. "That's good to hear," he finally said. "Your idea was a good one," Mrs. Wilson told him. "Sometimes people just need a chance to be better." The next weekend was Vic's last required one at the shelter. According to Jason's punishment, he only had to work for 1 month. This would be his 4th weekend, and then he could stop. When he arrived on Saturday morning, Mrs. Wilson was waiting for him. But today she wasn't alone. A man in a black cap and sunglasses was sitting in a chair near her desk. Vic stopped when he saw him. It was Jason Statham. "Good morning," Jason said, standing up. Vic felt his heart beat faster. "Good morning, sir," he said nervously. "Mrs. Wilson tells me you've been doing good work here," Jason said. Vic nodded. "I've tried my best. I wanted to see for myself," Jason said. Today is your last required day, right? Yes, Vic said. But he looked at Mrs. Wilson, then back at Jason. But I was hoping I could keep coming, if that's okay. Jason's serious face broke into a small smile. That's not what I expected to hear. Mrs. Wilson stepped forward. Vic has become one of our best volunteers. The dogs love him. As if on cue, a small white dog ran into the room. It was Millie. She ran straight to Vic and jumped up, her front paws on his legs. Vic bent down and picked her up. Hey, Millie, he said softly, petting her head. Jason watched this with interest. The tough biker who had kicked a dog for fun was now gently holding a small dog, his face soft with affection. People can change, Mrs. Wilson said quietly to Jason. Yes, Jason agreed. It seems they can. Jason stayed at the shelter that day, watching Vic work. He saw how the dogs ran to Vic with their tails wagging. He noticed how Vic knew each dog's name and special needs. It was clear that Vic had changed from the man who kicked Pip a month ago. Would you like to walk some dogs with me? Vic asked Jason during the afternoon. He was still nervous talking to the famous actor, but he tried to be brave. Jason nodded. Sure. Which one should I take? Vic handed him a leash for a big brown dog. This is Max. He's very strong but well-behaved. He would like your energy. And you'll walk Millie? Jason asked, looking at the small white dog that seemed to follow Vic everywhere. Vic smiled. Yes, she likes short walks because her legs are so tiny. They walked the dogs in the park near the shelter. People stared at them. A famous movie star and a tough-looking biker walking dogs together. Some people took pictures, but Jason and Vic just talked about the dogs. How are your dogs doing? Vic asked. Especially Pip. Is he okay after, you know? They're all good, Jason said. Pip was a bit scared for a few days, but he's fine now. Dogs don't hold grudges like people do. Vic looked relieved. I'm glad. I still feel terrible about what I did. They walked in silence for a while. Then Jason spoke again. Mrs. Wilson says you're good with the difficult dogs, the ones that are scared or aggressive. I understand them, Vic said simply. They're just scared. Like people, sometimes they act tough when they're really afraid. Jason looked at Vic with new respect. That's very insightful. When they got back to the shelter, Mrs. Wilson was waiting with some news. We have a new arrival, she said. Just came in an hour ago. Police found him tied to a fence. He's in bad shape. She led them to a back room. In a cage was a skinny black dog with patchy fur. The dog growled when they came close. He won't let anyone touch him, Mrs. Wilson explained. We need to check him for injuries, but he's too scared. Vic looked at the dog for a long time. Can I try? He asked. Mrs. Wilson nodded. Be careful. Vic sat down on the floor near the cage. He didn't look directly at the dog. He just sat quietly. After a few minutes, he started talking in a soft, low voice. Hey, buddy. That's a tough spot you're in. I know what it's like to be scared, to feel like you have to be mean to protect yourself. The dog stopped growling, but he still watched Vic with careful eyes. I'm not going to hurt you, Vic continued. No one here will. We just want to help. Slowly, very slowly, Vic opened the cage door. He didn't reach in. He just opened it and waited. The dog stayed back, watching. Jason and Mrs. Wilson watched in amazement as Vic continued to sit and talk softly. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The dog slowly moved forward, sniffing the air. That's it, Vic said gently. You can take your time. No rush. After nearly 30 minutes, the dog came close enough to sniff Vic's hand. Vic didn't move. He let the dog decide what to do. Good boy, Vic whispered when the dog finally let him touch its head. Mrs. Wilson turned to Jason with tears in her eyes. I've never seen anything like this, she said quietly. He has a gift. Jason nodded. Yes, he does. Vic was fully focused on the dog, gently checking for injuries while talking softly to him. The dog was still nervous but allowed Vic to touch him. What will happen to this dog? Jason asked Mrs. Wilson. We'll heal him, then try to find him a home, she said. But it's hard with dogs that have been abused. People want puppies, not dogs with problems. Jason watched as Vic carefully picked up the skinny black dog. The dog trembled but didn't bite or struggle. I think, Jason said slowly, that this dog might already be finding his home. Over the next week, Vic came to the shelter every day, not just on the weekend. He would arrive after his regular job at the bike shop and stay until closing time. His focus was on the skinny black dog, which they had named Shadow. Shadow was slowly getting better. He ate food from Vic's hand. He let the vet check him and give him medicine, but he still didn't trust anyone except Vic. You should adopt him, Mrs. Wilson told Vic one evening as he was getting ready to leave. He's bonded with you. Vic looked uncertain. I don't know if I can. My apartment doesn't allow pets. Mrs. Wilson frowned. That's a problem. Vic went home that night feeling sad. He wanted to give Shadow a home, but he didn't see how he could. His roommate was allergic to dogs, and their landlord had strict rules. The next day, Vic got a surprise. Jason Statham came back to the shelter, this time with his 3 dogs, Pip, Bruno, and Scout. How's Shadow doing? Jason asked. Better, Vic said, but he still has a long way to go. Jason nodded. Mrs. Wilson told me about your apartment problem. No dogs allowed. Vic sighed. Yeah, I've been looking for a new place, but everything that allows dogs is too expensive for me. Jason was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I have an idea. I own some properties in London. Small houses. One of them is empty right now. It has a fenced yard. Vic's eyes widened. Are you offering me a place to live? It would need work, Jason said. Nothing fancy. But it would be a place where you could have Shadow. You'd pay rent, of course, but not as much as normal. Vic couldn't believe what he was hearing. Why would you do this for me? After what I did to your dog? Jason looked at Pip, who was sniffing around the shelter floor. Because people deserve second chances, and because Shadow needs you. Tears filled Vic's eyes. He quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Jason replied. Later that day, Vic sat in Shadow's kennel, the dog leaning against his leg. He told Shadow about Jason's offer. What do you think, boy? Should we live in a house together? Shadow looked up at Vic and licked his hand once. I'll take that as a yes, Vic said with a smile. 2 weeks later, Vic moved into the small house. It wasn't fancy, but it had a yard with a tall fence where Shadow could run safely. Vic spent his weekends fixing things around the house, making it better. Shadow was still nervous around new people, but each day he grew more confident. Vic took him to training classes, and slowly Shadow learned to trust. One Saturday morning, there was a knock at Vic's door. When he opened it, Jason Statham was standing there with his 3 dogs on leashes. Thought we'd stop by for a visit, Jason said. See how you two are settling in. Vic invited them in. At first, Shadow hid behind Vic's legs, unsure about the visitors. But soon, the curious dog came out to meet Jason's dogs. Pip, the Yorkshire Terrier that Vic had kicked that day, approached Shadow carefully. The 2 dogs sniffed each other. Then, to everyone's surprise, they began to play. Well, would you look at that? Jason said with a smile. Vic shook his head in wonder. If someone had told me 2 months ago that I'd be having Jason Statham and his dogs over to my house for a playdate, I would have said they were crazy. Jason laughed. Life is full of surprises. They watched as the dogs ran around the living room, playing together like old friends. Thank you, Vic said quietly. Not just for the house, for giving me a chance to be better. Jason nodded. You did the hard work. I just opened a door. Outside, People walked by the house, having no idea that inside was a famous movie star, a former biker, and 5 dogs who had brought them all together in the most unexpected way. 1 year had passed since that day outside the coffee shop. So much had changed for everyone involved. Vic now worked full-time at the Chester Street Animal Rescue. Mrs. Wilson had hired him 6 months ago when her assistant left. Vic had found his calling in life. He was especially good with the scared dogs, the ones that had been hurt by people. He helped them learn to trust again. Shadow had become a healthy, happy dog. His black fur now shined, and he had gained weight. He still had some fear of strangers, but he was much better. He followed Vic everywhere, his loyal friend. Vic's old friends, the ones who had laughed when he kicked Pip, were no longer in his life. He had made new friends, people who loved animals like he did now. He still lived in Jason's small house. He had fixed it up nicely, painting the walls and fixing the garden. He paid his rent on time every month, and he took good care of the place. Jason Statham had finished his movie and was now working on a new one, but he still found time to visit the shelter. He brought donations and sometimes helped with the big dogs that needed strong handlers. Today was special. It was the 1-year anniversary of the shelter's Second Chance program. This program, started by Jason and Vic, helped people who had made mistakes learn to care for animals. The idea came from their own story. The local news was doing a story about the program. A reporter and camera crew were at the shelter, talking to Mrs. Wilson. This program has helped 20 people in the past year, Mrs. Wilson told the reporter. People who did wrong things but wanted to change. And it all started with an incident involving you, Mr. Statham, and you, Mr. Victor Smith. The reporter asked, looking at Jason and Vic. Jason nodded. Everyone deserves a second chance. Vic is proof of that. Vic smiled shyly. He still wasn't comfortable with attention. The dogs taught me more than I taught them, he said simply. After the interview, they had a small party at the shelter. There was cake for the humans and special treats for the dogs. Everyone who had gone through the Second Chance program was invited. One young woman came up to Vic with tears in her eyes. I want to thank you, she said. Before this program, I was so angry all the time. Learning to care for these animals changed me. Vic understood exactly how she felt. The animals see who we really are, he said, not who we pretend to be. Later, as the party was ending, Jason pulled Vic aside. I have some news, he said. I'm going to be away filming for 6 months. I need someone to watch my house and take care of Pip, Bruno, and Scout. Vic's eyes widened. You want me to watch your dogs? After everything. Jason smiled. There's no one I trust more with them now. That evening, Vic sat on his porch with Shadow by his side. He thought about how one bad choice had led to so much change in his life. If he hadn't kicked those dogs that day, he would still be the same angry, empty person he was before. His phone buzzed with a message. It was from his mom. She had seen him on the news and was proud of him. They hadn't spoken in years before Vic's change, but now they talked every week. Another message came in from Mrs. Wilson. Don't forget, we have 5 new dogs coming tomorrow. Big day. Vic smiled. His life was full now. Full of purpose, full of friends, both human and canine. Shadow nudged his hand, asking for pets. As Vic scratched behind the dog's ears, he thought about the strange path that had brought them together. Sometimes the worst moments in life could lead to the best changes. Sometimes the biggest mistakes could open doors to new beginnings. And sometimes a single act of forgiveness could start a chain of good that touched many lives. All because a biker kicked some dogs as a joke, never thinking Jason Statham was the owner.